Welcome back to another episode of the Diabetes Digital Podcast. I am so excited to announce that we are going to be expanding our podcast to weekly episodes. So every other week for the rest of this year, we're going to do our longer form episode, which is about 20 to 30 minutes. Typically, we have a guest, or it's going to be Wendy and myself. And then on the other weeks, we're going to do mini-sodes. So they're going to happen bi-weekly, where we're going to cover a question that we get asked by our listeners or by our patients, or that the dietitians bring up in the case conferences that comes up a lot. And so this will be a nice chance to just connect with the community, answer all your questions, and we're going to rotate who answers the question. So every other week I'll answer, and then Wendy will answer on the following weeks.
Welcome to the Diabetes Digital Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Jess, and we're best friends, registered dietitians, and diabetes educators.
Through our telehealth platform, diabetesdigital.co, we offer accessible and personalized virtual nutrition counseling for people with diabetes and prediabetes.
Visit diabetesdigital.co, that's C-O, to book your first appointment. We accept insurance and offer affordable self-pay options. Now, let's get into today's episode.
So I'm just going to jump in with our first question, our first mini-sode. Again, these episodes are going to be shorter, about 5 to 10 minutes, just sound bites with kind of one idea and one takeaway, which we also think will be helpful because there's so many podcasts out there and so much information. And we just want to give you kind of one sound bite, like a fully fleshed out sound bite on a topic at a time, so that you can use that information and incorporate it in your life in a way that we might do in one-on-one counseling instead of overwhelming you with a ton of information. So this first question comes from one of our lovely dietitians and also our outreach manager, Jenny, who is integral to planning our podcast. She comes up with a lot of the episode ideas. She manages the podcast, coordinates all the guests, does the blog posts. We love Jenny. And anyways, Jenny also sees patients, and she said one of the most common questions she gets asked is, how long should I wear a CGM, which stands for continuous glucose monitor. So we're going to go into that today, and this is going to be, again, like a 10-minute episode. So I'm going to start out with, what is a CGM and how does it work? So a CGM, also known as a continuous glucose monitor, tracks your blood sugar 24/7. So you wear this small sensor on your body. Typically you wear it on like the top outside of your arm, your upper arm. And it gives real-time data to your phone and lets you kind of know like what's going on with your blood glucose levels. Most sensors last 10 to 14 days. So you oftentimes, if you're going to use it for longer than that, you need to continue applying new sensors. So who benefits from wearing a continuous glucose monitor? Because I also feel like there's a ton of companies now who are selling CGMs to just everybody, and I don't think everybody needs a CGM. So here's who benefits: people with type 1 diabetes. For those folks, daily wear is usually essential for insulin management. Also, people with type 2 diabetes. This is great for learning how food, meds, and movement affect your numbers. If you have type 2 diabetes and you're also on insulin, I would say daily wear. And then for people with pre-diabetes, I feel like a sensor can be really helpful for you to see trends in your blood sugar and just figure out kind of what's going on, what affects your blood glucose, and how you can manage your pre-diabetes and help prevent it from potentially turning into diabetes. So a couple of things to keep in mind. For new users, we usually recommend that people start with at least like 2 to 4 weeks of wearing your CGM. Why? Because that gives you enough time to see how your body responds to meals, exercise, stress, and sleep. I'll give you an example of a client who had prediabetes and was wearing a CGM for a month and actually found out that her smoothie, which she thought was great, and it was technically a healthy smoothie, was really spiking her blood sugar way more than she thought. And so we were able to figure out how we can add things to that smoothie to give it more fiber, to give it more protein, to help keep the blood glucose levels more stable in the morning. Okay, when does longer wear make sense? So if you're adjusting to insulin, and these are folks who have type 1 diabetes, some people with type 2 diabetes, if you are switching medications, especially folks with type 2 diabetes, or you want to continue running meal experiments, so this can apply to people with prediabetes or diabetes, longer use can be helpful. So when can a CGM feel like it's just doing too much? I feel like people who don't have any, health concerns or blood glucose regulation issues. So folks who don't have prediabetes, don't have diabetes, I feel like it might be doing too much in those cases. And also some people, especially those with pre-DM or newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes, might find it stressful because you can end up checking your blood sugar constantly and it can just feel overwhelming. And I think in those cases, it's okay to pause. Like if the data just causes more anxiety than awareness, then it's probably not worth it long term. If you are someone who is wearing a CGM and you're finding that you are having more of that anxiety, I think a couple of tips I would recommend is don't stress over single elevations or spikes in your blood glucose. Zoom out and look at trends, right? So what happens an hour after the meal? What about 3 hours later? Is your blood sugar recovering or is it staying elevated? And I think this is the most important piece of information because oftentimes we hear, on Instagram or in the media that like, oh, my blood sugar spiked and that's bad, but that's actually what should happen after eating, right? It is going to go up and that's normal. But the question is like, how long is it staying up and can it recover? And so I think, with people who have diabetes, it's harder for it to recover. It might stay up for longer. And that's why we are doing these experiments to see like what we can do to help it. And for prediabetes, it's kind of seeing, again, those trends and how different things impact your blood glucose. Okay, so let's talk about insurance cost and tips. CGMs are often covered by insurance for type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And some plans even cover them for prediabetes and insulin resistance. If not, you can definitely check out options like GoodRx or a subscription-based program. There's NutriSense, and there's also programs now that don't have subscription. So for example, Dexcom, which is a big maker of CGMs, recently released Stelo, which is a CGM you can get without a prescription. You can get it as a subscription, I believe, either that or just buy, the 2-week trial, or just buy it for 2 weeks at a time. And then also Abbott released Lingo, which is similar to Stelo, where you can just buy 2 weeks at a time. And I think it's about $89 for 2 weeks. So whether you are using a CGM daily for type 1 diabetes or you're just doing a 2-week trial for prediabetes, CGMs can offer powerful feedback, and even short-term use can really shift how you approach food and movement. So if you're interested in trying a CGM or unsure if it's covered or you want someone to help you just walk through the information and not get stressed out, definitely hit us up at Diabetes Digital, work with one of our dietitians. This is one thing we do with most of our patients because we do focus on, blood glucose, prediabetes, diabetes, PCOS. You can go to our website, diabetesdigital.co/quiz. Fill out our quiz. We'll let you know if we accept your insurance. And from there, we can book an appointment and get you started with a dietitian. Again, that's diabetesdigital.co/quiz. All right, see you there.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're interested in nutrition counseling with one of our expert dietitians to help improve your prediabetes or diabetes, visit us at diabetesdigital.co.
Also, if you found our conversation helpful, do us a favor and rate and review this podcast on iTunes, plus share with someone who might find this helpful. You can also connect with us on Instagram at diabetesdigital.co.
And tune in every Wednesday for practical, inclusive, and culturally humble diabetes insights. We'll catch you later. Bye.